Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic from the book, Understanding Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style by Mindy Rivers. We're diving deep into what goes on inside someone who seems very calm and independent on the outside, but might be feeling something very different inside.
That's right, Sophie. Many people who have what we call a dismissive avoidant way of relating to others often seem confident and unbothered. Their partners might think that what they see is exactly what's happening within them. But the truth is, a lot of these individuals have a really active inner world, a hidden conversation going on all the time that they don't share. So it's not that they don't care, it's just that they're having this deep inner talk that no one else hears. Why don't they share it? Exactly. They might not know how to share, or it might feel very unsafe to them. This inner talk is important because it shows us that their actions, which might look like they don't care, are actually a struggle between wanting closeness, being scared, feeling proud, and needing to stay in charge of their feelings.
That's a lot to unpack. So, this hidden inner talk, where does it come from?
It often starts very early. If someone grew up in a home where showing feelings wasn't okay, they learn to keep their emotional life very private. They learn to make big decisions and calm themselves down all on their own. This builds an inner voice that handles everything by itself, and that voice becomes their main companion as they grow up. So when things get tough or when they feel really close to someone, they just go inward instead of reaching out? That's it. They process everything alone. And even if they look quiet on the outside, that processing can be very intense for them. Can you give an example of how this might look? Sure. Imagine a partner says something that hurts them, and they go completely silent. The partner might think they don't care at all, but inside, that person might be having a whole conversation. They could be thinking about what the comment means, deciding if it's safe to say anything back, telling themselves not to overreact, or fighting the urge to just leave the room. They might even be remembering old times when they were criticized or dismissed. That silence isn't empty, it's often very crowded with thoughts.
Wow, so what looks like indifference is actually a lot of inner work. Do they use this inner voice to minimize things?
Absolutely. Their inner voice often uses minimizing as a way to cope. It might say, it's not a big deal, even if something truly hurts. Or if they feel a strong desire for something, it might say, you don't need that. When they feel swamped, it might just say, just handle it. This voice tries to keep them safe by pushing away any sense of needing something. It's the voice that learned a long time ago that needing things just leads to disappointment.
So it's like a protective shield, but it can also be quite harsh on them.
Precisely. Another big part of this inner talk is constantly checking how close a relationship feels. They might not say anything, but they're always noticing how often their partner wants to text, how many evenings they spend together, or how many deep talks are happening. If the relationship starts feeling too close, that inner voice can get very worried.
And what does it say then?
It might say things like, this is getting too much, or I'm losing my freedom, or they want too much from me. These thoughts can feel very true to them. Often it's just their mind trying to feel safe again by creating some space.
It's like after a really nice, tender moment, they feel close, but then they get unsettled. What happens then?
That's a classic example. The inner talk starts up. It might warn, don't get too attached, or you're going to regret this, or they're going to need more now, or you can't keep this up. Then they might pull away. Not because they stopped caring, but because that inner voice is screaming danger. The danger might be emotional dependence, obligation, or exposure. Keeping a distance makes that warning voice quiet down.
So they create distance to make themselves feel safe, even if it hurts the other person.
Yes, and often they don't even realize the depth of the impact on others because they're so caught up in their own internal struggle. This inner talk also often includes fear that's dressed up as judgment. They might suddenly focus on all their partner's faults, thinking, my partner's too emotional, or too messy, or too demanding.
These judgments can feel very clear to them. They can also be a way of creating distance internally.
So they're not really seeing flaws, they're just creating distance in their mind. If they convince themselves the partner isn't right, they don't have to face the scary feeling of truly loving someone and being vulnerable. It turns fear into critique because critique feels safer than longing.
That's exactly it. This is one of the ways the mind protects the heart. It turns fear into critique because critique feels safer than longing.
And there's guilt in all of this too, right? Even if it's hidden?
Definitely. Many of these individuals know they have limits in intimacy. They might sense their partner's disappointment. They might feel guilty for not being more open. They may also feel resentful of being asked for more closeness, which creates a really painful mix of feelings. The inner voice might say, "You're failing," and then quickly follow it with, "They shouldn't expect this from you." They may not share this because it feels confusing and vulnerable, and instead withdraw, which reduces guilt in the moment, but increases disconnection.
And they wouldn't share that with their partner because it feels too confusing or vulnerable.
Right. Instead, they often pull away, which might make them feel less guilty for a moment, but it just makes the distance in the relationship even bigger. Think about conflict. A partner says they need something emotionally, and the avoidant person feels a lot of pressure. Inside, they might be thinking, "I can't do this," and "I don't want to hurt them," and "Why is this so hard for me?" or "I shouldn't have to do this." So the partner just hears silence and thinks they're being ignored. But the person is actually having a storm of thoughts inside. Exactly. The partner interprets the silence as dismissal, while the avoidant person experiences the silence as trying not to make things worse. This hidden inner dialogue is one reason avoidant people can seem unresponsive. They are responding internally, but they are not speaking. It sounds like a lot of their inner world is about control. Is that right? Control is a primary safety strategy. Yes, control is a very important safety tool for them. The inner voice might say, "Stay calm," or "Don't show weakness," or "Don't let them see you need them." Control can feel like dignity and even like survival. If you grew up feeling shamed for emotion, you may have learned that showing emotion leads to humiliation. The inner dialogue then becomes a guard that prevents exposure. The guard can be so strong that it blocks even healthy vulnerability. But what about their own deepest desires? Do they ever want closeness? They often do. The inner dialogue can also include a longing that the person does not acknowledge. Dismissive avoidants often want to be loved in a steady way, and they often want to be understood without being pressured. They may crave a feeling of home in a relationship. They may imagine what it would be like to relax into closeness. But then the inner voice interrupts, warning that closeness is dangerous and reminding them that needing is risky. The person may then push the longing down. The longing becomes quiet, but it does not disappear. It shows up as restlessness, as loneliness, or as a sense that something is missing.
So during the day, they might be fine, but when they're alone at night, that feeling comes out. They might pick up their phone and put it down, torn between longing and pride.
Exactly. During the day, they may feel fine. At night, when distractions are gone, they may feel a sudden ache. They might think about their partner, miss them, and want to reach out. Then the inner dialogue begins again, saying things like, "Don't be needy," or "You don't need anyone," or "This is silly." This is the quiet inner struggle many avoidant people never talk about.
It sounds like what looks like avoidance is actually a very complex way of managing their feelings, not a lack of feeling at all. And the mind is working hard to keep them safe from shame, overwhelm, and dependency, but that can isolate them.
That's the key takeaway. Their mind is working incredibly hard to keep them safe. The problem is that the same inner dialogue that protects can also isolate. It can keep love at a distance. It can turn relationships into a place of tension rather than comfort. Healing often involves learning to make that inner dialogue less harsh, like saying, you are feeling afraid of needing, and that makes sense, instead of, you don't need anyone. Yes, healing involves learning to make the inner dialogue less harsh and more honest. The goal is not to silence it, but to make it kinder and more accurate through gentle self-awareness.
Let's talk about indifference. From the outside, they often seem completely indifferent, like nothing touches them. Their partners can find this really upsetting. They might think it means the relationship doesn't matter to them. But is that true?
No, it's usually not. That calm look, that indifference isn't usually a sign that they don't have feelings. Instead, it's often a sign that they're feeling a lot of fear, covered up by a stance that protects their dignity. Rejection doesn't just mean someone leaving, does it? It also means being met with contempt, being misunderstood, or being judged when they're trying to be open. That's right. For many dismissive avoidants, this fear formed early because they may have experienced emotional dismissal, criticism, or felt their needs were inconvenient. They learned that showing emotion was risky, so it makes sense to protect themselves by not reaching out.
So indifference becomes a powerful way to protect themselves. If you don't need anyone, you can't be rejected in the same way. If you act like you don't care, you don't risk caring deeply and getting hurt.
Precisely. This isn't always conscious. They might genuinely feel indifferent because they've trained themselves to shut down feelings quickly. Not recognizing the fear underneath, the fear is still there, but it is hidden.
Can you give us an example of how this plays out in a relationship?
Imagine this. A person starts to really care about someone, feels warmth and tenderness. Then they notice the risk of rejection. Instead of admitting that risk, they pull back, act casual, delay responses, or minimize the relationship. These behaviors can look like disinterest, but they are self-protection, trying to reduce the sting of potential rejection by lowering their own emotional investment.
What about when a partner asks for reassurance, like, do you still love me?
Then the indifference can really show up. They might respond with irritation or a shrug, making the partner feel rejected. The avoidant person feels pressured, perhaps fearing that reassurance creates expectations or makes them responsible for maintaining closeness. If closeness feels like a threat to autonomy, they respond with indifference to create distance, protecting themselves from the vulnerability of saying, yes, I care.
So it's also about not wanting to be seen as wanting something, because wanting means exposure and implies the other person matters, whose rejection would hurt.
Exactly. Many learned early that it is safer not to show wanting, perhaps because they were shamed for needing or taught that strength means not caring. They adopted indifference as a form of strength, but it is armor.
And how does this look in dating?
In dating, someone might really like another person and feel excited, but they act very cool. They might not initiate often or show much affection. They might wait for the other person to show interest first. If the other person then pulls away, they might tell themselves they never cared much anyway, or that it wasn't serious, and move on quickly. Underneath, they're protecting themselves from the pain of feeling rejected. By acting indifferent, they can tell themselves that rejection doesn't matter, even if it truly does.
This indifference must also show up in long-term relationships, too.
Yes, it certainly does. Many fear that if their partner truly sees them, they'll be disappointed, maybe seen as emotionally inadequate or weak, especially if they grew up with criticism. When a partner asks for more emotional closeness, it activates this fear, and they might respond with indifference, acting as if the request is silly or unnecessary, protecting themselves from the fear that they can't meet the need and will be rejected for it.
And during conflict, too, I imagine.
Absolutely. A partner expresses hurt, and the avoidant person responds with calm detachment, focusing on facts or minimizing the emotion, which makes the partner more upset, and the avoidant person withdraws further. Underneath, they may fear the conflict means the relationship is in danger, fearing blame and rejection. Indifference keeps them from feeling that fear, but it also keeps them from engaging in repair, which increases the relationship danger. The armor protects in the moment, but harms in the long run. So because they're indifferent, they can't even ask for what they need? They might not ask for closeness, reassurance, or affection, acting like they don't care even when they do. That's a very sad consequence. Partners may then assume the avoidant person is satisfied with distance, leading the avoidant person to feel quietly lonely and withdraw further, making the relationship colder. One common situation is when they want their partner to reach out, but won't ask because asking feels vulnerable. They act indifferent, the partner gives space, then the avoidant feels rejected but stays distant, and the cycle continues. Indifference creates the very distance that feels like rejection.
It sounds like a trap. Let's move on to control. The book says control is a major part of this experience. Why is control so important?
For many, control feels like the most reliable way to stay safe. For them, control is internal, how they manage their emotions, needs, image, and exposure. It's the feeling of handling life without depending too much on anyone else. When control is strong, intimacy feels risky because it invites unpredictability and another person into their inner world, changing the emotional temperature in ways they can't fully manage.
So control helps explain why they can seem both calm and distant at the same time. It starts early, when being out of control led to pain.
Yes. If they grew up where emotions were met with criticism, conflict escalated, or caregivers were unpredictable, control becomes a way to reduce vulnerability. The child learns, if I stay composed, I stay safe.
So it starts with emotional self-control.
Exactly. The child learns to stop crying quickly, swallow fear, and not ask for comfort, keeping feelings contained. Adults praise this as maturity, and the child feels proud. This control works to reduce conflict, but over time, the adult doesn't know how to be emotionally messy. Feeling that being messy is dangerous or humiliating, control becomes the default.
And how does this look in a serious conversation with a partner?
If a partner starts a serious talk asking for honesty, the avoidant person feels pressure, their body tenses, and they might want to end it quickly. They might respond with logic, change the subject, or leave. From the outside, this looks like avoidance, but inside, it's often the need for control, trying to keep the intensity manageable, fearing they will say something revealing or get pulled into feelings they cannot control.
So control is also about managing distance. They feel safest when they choose when closeness happens.
Yes, many feel safest when they initiate affection. But if a partner initiates emotional closeness, they may feel overwhelmed. This is a way of managing vulnerability. If they choose closeness, they feel in control. If closeness is requested, they may feel trapped. When trapped, defenses rise.
And this leads to a strong need for independence, right? It's how they stay in charge of their emotional life. It does. Independence reduces risk, and avoiding risk is what control is about. If they rely only on themselves, they avoid waiting, disappointment, and uncertainty. The cost is that independence can become isolation, especially if they don't allow themselves to receive comfort. So even if they're stressed, they'll handle it alone instead of sharing it with a partner. Accepting support can feel like losing control.
Exactly. They might say they're fine or even feel annoyed by the offer. Deep down, accepting support means admitting need and allowing someone into their emotional space, which feels exposing. Saying no restores control, even if it means staying alone.
And they also don't like feeling emotionally affected by others. They might feel irritated when their partner is sad, not because they don't care, but because the sadness changes their inner state, and they want to return to calm quickly, perhaps by fixing the problem or withdrawing to restore their own emotional equilibrium. This need for control is partly the need to keep the inner world stable.
This explains why they might struggle with empathy then. Empathy means being moved, which can feel like losing control.
Yes, because being moved can feel risky if their identity is built around steadiness. They worry that If they let themselves feel, they'll be overwhelmed, so they stay detached. The partner sees coldness, the avoidant person sees survival.
Control also links to a fear of being embarrassed, right? Vulnerability involves uncertainty, which feels unbearable if they have a shame response. Control reduces uncertainty. Yes, if they keep feelings private, they don't risk judgment. If they keep needs small, they don't risk dismissal. If they keep distance, they don't risk rejection after being seen. Control becomes how they protect dignity. So they might want to say something loving, but they'll hold back, fearing words won't be returned or will create expectations. They fear looking foolish. Exactly. They stay quiet, and the partner might think it means lack of love, while the avoidant person feels safer. Underneath, control is choosing safety over connection, managing exposure to prevent humiliation. The cost is that love remains unspoken. This constant need for control must also make them very rigid. It can. If they're always trying to stay in charge, they find it hard to adapt to normal relationship ups and downs. If they react to unpredictability by tightening control, relationships get tense. They pull away more, become more critical, or focus more on setting boundaries. Healthy boundaries can become walls when fear is driving the need for control. Let's explore another big belief, that feelings equal weakness. This must be a huge part of what drives their behavior. It truly is. This belief often doesn't look like a direct thought, like feelings are weak. It shows up as discomfort with tears, impatience with emotional talks, or a quick urge to fix things instead of sitting with them. It shows up as pride in being calm and self-reliant, and shame when they need comfort. This shapes behavior deeply. So, if they believe feelings are weak, they keep those feelings hidden, even from themselves. Precisely. This belief often starts in families that valued toughness, where emotional expression was discouraged, crying was mocked, or needing comfort was inconvenient. The child learns that emotions are burdensome, so showing them feels weak and selfish, leading them to hide their feelings. Give us an example of how this plays out. Imagine a child cries, and a parent reacts with irritation, causing shame. So the child learns to swallow feelings quickly. As an adult, they might feel pride in their steadiness, but discomfort when their partner cries, because crying activates that old shame. The partner's feelings feel like weakness, and the avoidant person fears being pulled into that weakness. So this belief impacts their own inner life and how they react to others' emotions. If they believe feelings equal weakness, they try not to feel, focusing on tasks and logic. It certainly does. They distract themselves and use logic as a shield, which can create a successful life that feels emotionally thin. They reject feelings, so they reject information about themselves, meaning they may not know what they truly want or need, or what brings them joy. And when a partner expresses sadness or fear, how do they react? They might feel impatient, thinking the partner should handle it or is being dramatic. This is hurtful, but it's often fear because emotion has been linked to shame. They also fear emotions create demands. If feelings equal weakness, being around them feels contagious, so they pull away to protect themselves. Like a partner saying they're insecure and wanting reassurance, for instance? Yes, they might respond with logic, telling their partner they have no reason to feel that way. The partner feels invalidated and becomes more emotional. The avoidant person feels overwhelmed and withdraws, and the partner feels abandoned. Underneath, the avoidant person may believe insecurity is a weakness and fears endless reassurance, so they choose distance to preserve their identity of strength. This belief must make it really hard to apologize too. It does. Apologizing requires humility and emotional openness, admitting you hurt someone. If they believe feelings are weakness, admitting hurt feels humiliating or like surrender. They might prefer to move on without repair, act like nothing happened, focus on facts, or argue, all to protect against vulnerability. The cost is that the relationship doesn't heal, and the partner carries the hurt alone, creating distance. And what about their own need for comfort? Do they push that away? Even independent people need comfort during illness, grief, or exhaustion. But if they believe needing comfort is weakness, they refuse it, isolate when hurting, and keep pain private. People might not know they're struggling, and they might feel proud of handling it alone, but they also feel lonely. This belief forces them to carry life's burdens by themselves.
So someone might go through a big loss, like a family member dying, and just keep working as usual. Friends might call them strong, but they feel numb later.
Yes, they might feel relieved not to be seen as needy, but later feel numb, restless, or disconnected because the grief hasn't been processed. The belief that feelings are weakness prevented grieving. Unexpressed emotion can show up as irritability or distance, which they might not connect to the sadness because sadness feels like weakness and is therefore denied.
It's such a heavy burden. But even with all these defenses, they still long for love, don't they? Even if they don't show it.
Yes, this is one of the most tender truths about this way of relating. Someone can look independent and calm, yet deep down long for warmth, understanding, and to feel chosen, wanting love that feels safe and steady. The tragedy is that the very strategies that helped them survive can also keep that love at a distance.
So this longing starts in childhood, not because there was no love, but because the love they got didn't always meet their emotional needs, like comfort when sad or reassurance when scared.
That's it. The child learns to want love, but also to stop reaching for it. The longing stays, but the reaching fades away.
And as they grow up, this longing becomes something very private. They learn not to talk about it because needing feels shameful or unsafe.
Yes, they become proud of being self-sufficient and may tell themselves they are fine, but the longing can show up in quiet moments, like an ache when they see others being comforted, or when they are alone at night, showing their heart never stopped wanting connection.
So if they have a hard day and a partner offers comfort, they might brush it off, even if they want it. They want comfort, but don't know how to ask.
Exactly. The partner might offer closeness, and they brush it off, saying they are fine. The partner backs away, and the avoidant person feels alone and disappointed, even though they rejected the comfort. The longing is present, but defenses block expression. They long for love and protect themselves from receiving it.
And longing can also show up as wanting to be understood without having to explain everything. They struggle with emotional language.
Yes, they may not know how to describe what they feel, so they long for someone who can sense them, knowing when they need space and when they need closeness. This is understandable, longing to be met easily without awkward vulnerability. The problem is that adult relationships usually need communication, so when they don't communicate, they feel unseen, and their partner feels confused, leading to loneliness even while loving each other.
What about the early stages of a relationship? Do they show more longing then?
Often, yes. Many can be very present in the beginning when closeness feels exciting and safe. They might feel hopeful, seeing the chance of being loved without pressure, showing affection. This phase can satisfy the longing. But as the relationship deepens and expectations grow, pressure returns, defenses return, and they become guarded. The partner feels the shift from warmth to distance and gets hurt, while the avoidant person sees the shift as self-protection.
So if a partner asks for more emotional reassurance, they'll pull away again?
Precisely. The partner feels rejected and pursues. The avoidant person feels crowded and withdraws more. Underneath, the avoidant person might still long for love, but they want love that doesn't feel like a demand. They want closeness that feels like a choice, not an obligation. When closeness feels demanded, defenses rise, and the longing gets buried again.
And they might have private fantasies about what love could be like, imagining a peaceful relationship without pressure.
Yes, In their private thoughts, they might imagine being understood without talking much or being themselves without criticism. These fantasies are soothing because they allow longing without risk. But real life involves interaction, misunderstanding, and repair, which trigger fear. They might compare real life to the fantasy and feel dissatisfied, perhaps not realizing they are longing for safety, not perfection.
This longing can also be delayed, right? They might only feel it strongly after distance has already been created.
That's a very painful aspect. After a breakup or after a partner stops pursuing or after time alone, the longing can rise and they miss the partner more than expected. The partner might already be gone or emotionally guarded. This timing difference can create regret, wondering why they didn't appreciate the relationship when it was there. The answer is often that closeness triggered fear and distance quieted fear enough for longing to be felt.
So after a breakup, they might feel relief at first, but then a deep ache later.
Relief from reduced pressure, followed by an ache when life is quiet. Perhaps feeling embarrassed for missing someone. Yes, relief comes from less pressure. Weeks later, when life is quieter, they feel that ache, miss the warmth, and might want to reach out, but they might feel embarrassed for missing someone and tell themselves they are fine. The longing stays unresolved because they don't know how to honor it without feeling exposed. The cycle repeats.
This longing also often looks like a huge focus on independence. They fill their lives with work and projects, but beneath that busy schedule, there can be a quiet desire to be held emotionally.
That's right. They might be highly successful and enjoy freedom, but beneath the schedule, there can be a quiet desire to be held emotionally. The longing might not feel like clear romance, but like a vague emptiness or dissatisfaction with life. Because they don't want to admit need, they might interpret it as boredom or restlessness instead of longing.
So with all these internal processes, the hidden dialogue, masked fear, control, belief feelings are weakness, and hidden longing, it must lead to a lot of loneliness. This brings us to the loneliness behind the armor.
It does. It's a quiet solitude that exists even when they look confident and self-sufficient. Many are admired for being composed and capable. People assume if someone stands on their own, they aren't lonely. But loneliness is being emotionally alone. The feeling that no one truly sees you and you cannot fully let anyone see you. The armor protects from hurt, but it also keeps you from being held close.
This armor is built from ways of acting that made sense at one point, right? Keeping feelings private, handling problems alone, not asking for comfort.
Yes, they learned to be self-reliant because emotional support was limited or unsafe. As an adult, that armor can feel like strength, and the loneliness behind it is hard to notice because it has been there so long.
So it might not feel like a clear ache, but more like a general sense of disconnection. They might feel restless or irritable, needing to be busy.
That's it. They might not consciously think, I am lonely. They just feel restless or bored. They fill the quiet with work or distractions because quiet makes the loneliness louder, but the feeling of being emotionally held stays absent.
Like someone who has a successful career but feels an emptiness at night, they might think they need a vacation, but the deeper truth is longing for emotional closeness.
Precisely. They are respected, but at night they feel a vague emptiness. The armor keeps that longing hidden, and the loneliness remains unresolved.
And this loneliness is tied to their belief that needing someone is unsafe.
Yes, if they believe needing is weakness, they won't let themselves need, and they won't let themselves be comforted. Comfort reduces loneliness, but when they block comfort, they block the remedy. The loneliness often remains because the armor feels normal.
And their relationships stay on the surface, which probably doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. They can be charming and keep conversations light, but surface connection doesn't feed the hunger to be known. You can be liked by many and still feel alone. They might even prefer it that way because being understood feels risky. But the cost is missing the warmth of deep connection. So in romance, if a partner wants deeper closeness, they pull away, and the partner might give up, making the relationship calmer but more distant. Then they feel lonely but don't connect it to the distance. That's a common cycle. The distance feels safer, so they choose it. But the loneliness behind the armor is the part that still wants intimacy. It's also the loneliness of carrying everything alone. They pride themselves on capability, handling crises, planning, solving. They rarely ask for help, feeling like the support beam that isn't supported. This creates solitude.
This must lead to feelings of unfairness and resentment. They feel others are needy when they haven't shown their own needs.
It can become very painful. They might feel relationships are unfair or others are demanding. Some of this might be true, but some comes from not showing needs. The loneliness can turn into bitterness, adding another layer to their defenses.
So if they're stressed but say nothing, their partner won't know to respond, and they feel annoyed thinking nobody is there for me and pull away further even though they wanted support all along.
Precisely. The armor stopped them from asking, and the loneliness deepened. The loneliness is also connected to grief for comfort they didn't receive as children. The body remembers being alone with feelings, showing up as a hunger for warmth that feels hard to admit, sometimes leading to shame about wanting gentleness. The loneliness behind the armor is partly the loneliness of that unexpressed past sadness.
It sounds like a profound cost to all these defenses. This brings us to the cost of keeping walls so high.
It is. These walls were built for good reasons. Safety, when closeness was unreliable or shameful. But over time, walls keep love, comfort, and deep connection out too. The cost isn't always obvious, but it appears as loneliness that can't be named, shallow relationships, and a sense that something is missing even when everything seems fine.
So the first cost is not getting to be truly known, not just knowing facts, but having someone understand your inner world, your fears, your hopes.
That's right. When walls are high, you might share facts, but keep your emotional truth private. People might admire you, but you feel unknown, creating a quiet loneliness, even in company. This isolation can feel normal, but the human heart wants to be seen, and when denied, they might become numb or restless, chasing stimulation, while the walls keep them from the relief of being emotionally held.
The second cost is not being able to receive comfort when they need it. They might refuse it, saying they're fine, which looks strong but makes life heavier because they carry everything alone.
Exactly. When walls are high, they may refuse comfort even when offered, saying they are fine, or isolating when stressed. The walls protected them from vulnerability, but also blocked the comfort that would have helped them.
Like when a partner offers care during stress and they say they're fine and go quiet, then feel alone.
Precisely. The third cost is that relationships can't deepen without vulnerability, which requires shared truth and repair. When walls are high, relationships stay in a safe, shallow zone. The partner may feel something is missing and want more, pressuring the avoidant person who then withdraws. Either way, depth is limited.
This must be especially hard in romantic relationships, where the partner feels shut out and questions their worth.
It is. Partners want emotional connection and interdependence. When walls are high, the partner feels lonely, and the avoidant person feels guilty and resentful, caring deeply, but not knowing how to lower the wall without feeling unsafe. The relationship becomes tense instead of comfortable.
And the walls also lead to misunderstanding. Others guess their feelings. Silence means not caring. Space means rejection.
That's the fourth cost. Others become anxious because they don't know where they stand. The avoidant person feels misunderstood because they do care, but walls block the signals that help people feel safe. When people react to the lack of signals, it can create the very conflict they tried to avoid.
So, a partner asking for more closeness makes them feel criticized, they pull away, the partner gets more emotional, and they pull away even more. It just gets worse.
Yes, the cycle intensifies. The wall meant to protect peace creates instability because the partner can't feel secure, convincing the avoidant person that emotions are dangerous, reinforcing the wall. The fifth cost is internal tension, constantly managing what to share, regulating emotions, and avoiding exposure. This is tiring and creates a life where they are always slightly braced, showing up as exhaustion or irritability.
And it can also cost them self-understanding. If they keep feelings hidden, they lose access to their needs.
Definitely. They might not know what they want or when they are lonely until it's intense. They make decisions based only on logic and feel dissatisfied later. Feelings carry information. If walls block feelings, they lose that vital information, becoming skilled at functioning, but disconnected from the deeper parts of themselves.
And delayed grief, you mentioned that too. Sadness gets pushed down and comes up later as irritability or emptiness.
Yes, when walls are high, grief has no safe place to be expressed, so it comes out sideways, confusing everyone and stopping full healing, because healing requires letting emotions move through, not trapping them inside.
So they're also missing out on joy. Joy requires openness, and if they keep their inner world private, life becomes flatter.
Yes, that's another big cost. Defenses guard against pain, but also against being touched emotionally, which is part of joy. They have a muted relationship with joy because joy wants to be shared. Life becomes flatter, and the missing thing is often emotional aliveness.
It sounds like a really tough place to be, to have all these internal battles and then pay such a high cost for it. How do they start to heal from this?
Healing doesn't mean tearing down the walls at once. Those walls were built from past experiences, so they soften through new experiences. The most important step is learning they can lower the wall just a little without getting hurt. Share one feeling, accept one moment of comfort, or stay present for one difficult conversation without disappearing. These small moments teach their body that being open can be safe, making the wall less necessary over time.
So it's about small, gentle steps.
Exactly. Like when they feel the urge to pull away during a tough moment, but instead say, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need a pause to gather myself, but I care and I will come back. This is a small, honest opening that preserves self while offering connection, reducing confusion and guilt. Repeated moments like this slowly lower the wall and build trust.
And it helps them understand that being influenced emotionally isn't the same as being controlled.
That's a crucial part of healing. In close relationships, people affect each other, and that's part of love. They can learn to tolerate being touched emotionally without feeling trapped, learning that empathy doesn't require losing themselves, but presence, which can be chosen and exited carefully. When this is learned, the need for control becomes less urgent.
So the goal isn't to get rid of control, but to change how they use it from defense to choice.
Right. It's shifting from, I must stay guarded or I'll be hurt, to, I can take care of myself and also allow closeness. This happens when they learn intimacy can include boundaries. They can be open and still have limits, vulnerable and still keep autonomy, and receive support while still being in charge of their life.
And redefining strength must be a big part of this healing journey, especially when they believed feelings equaled weakness.
It's huge. Strength isn't the absence of feeling, it's the ability to stay present with what is true without being destroyed by it. Strength includes asking for help, allowing comfort, and admitting fear while still moving forward. When they change the definition of strength, feelings stop being the enemy and become part of being human.
And slowly, gently, they learn that expressing feelings can actually lead to connection, not shame.
Yes, this shift needs safe emotional experiences, like realizing tears can be met with kindness, vulnerability respected, and emotional talks can end calmly. These teach the body that feelings can lead to connection, not shame.
Like sharing a simple truth, even if it feels scary, and seeing that nothing terrible happens.
Exactly. For example, admitting, I look confident, but I feel unsure about being enough for you. This vulnerability can feel terrifying, but it deeply connects. The partner feels relieved because the avoidant person becomes more human. The avoidant person feels relief for no longer pretending to be unbreakable. Each time they allow a feeling to be seen and survive it, the link between feelings and weakness weakens, and they build a new link between feelings and safety.
It sounds like a journey towards a more honest and integrated self, and recognizing that the belief feelings equal weakness makes vulnerability shameful, pushing them toward control and distance.
It truly is. Understanding this belief with compassion helps them see it was learned as a survival mechanism. Now they can update it, learning that feelings are not weakness, but part of their humanity. Allowing their full humanity doesn't make them less strong, it makes them more real. And realness is what makes love possible.
What a powerful message. It means becoming more fully themselves, with room for both their strengths and their heart. Thank you so much, Clara, for guiding us through this complex but very important topic from Mindy Rivers' book, Understanding the Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style.
It's my pleasure, Sophie. Understanding these inner workings brings so much compassion and a clearer path for growth.
This conversation can help many people understand themselves or their loved ones better. If this episode helped you see things in a new way, share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it too.